Joining me is Michael Shoebridge, a former senior defence official, now founder and director of Strategic Analysis Australia. Michael Shoebridge, great to talk to you. Let me start with this. China and 133 of its allies, dictatorships, poor countries, are demanding at this UN climate conference that we and the West pay them $1.8 trillion a year for their climate change projects. That per person works out to us paying $1,500 for every Australian man, woman and child every year. What's China up to with their demand this extraordinary?
I think the leaders in Beijing are hoping we are so stupid that we take this seriously, because the largest source of emissions on the planet is the economy that the leaders in Beijing run. They know it. So they're just hoping to trade on our naivety and stupidity.
But this is a curious thing, Michael Shoebridge. You've got Anthony Albanese promoting himself at the APEC meeting last week as being really pro-global warming policies, when you've got Trump saying, no, it's a scam. You've got Albanese not having a meeting with Joe Biden at that meeting, but he did have a meeting, or will, with Xi Jinping in Brazil this week. And the official China Daily has actually praised Albanese as a good leader who isn't getting too close to the US. In fact, Albanese is now promoting free trade just when Trump is coming in saying, no, I'm really going to hit a lot of countries with tariffs, particularly China. What is going on here?
Well, Andrew, I don't think anyone besides the Australian Treasury and the Australian Prime Minister really thinks free trade is a thing to promote right now. Everybody else is using industrial policy and protectionist trade policies, not just Donald Trump. This is like Mr. Albanese choosing the perfect time to promote communism just after the fall of the Soviet Union. Now, promoting free trade now is just like that. And so if he wants to set himself up as the anti-Trump warrior for the Western world, who's working closely with people like Xi Jinping, this path he's on is the perfect recipe. It really doesn't make sense for our national interest.
Yes, well, I don't know whether this is very smart. And meanwhile, of course, is keeping Kevin Rudd as his ambassador to Washington, despite Rudd having called the Trump a village idiot. But Joe Biden, he looked completely on the outer at this that APEC meeting, completely on the outer, looked like a finished figure. He's only got a couple of months to go and is looking so doddery. But he has finally done one thing. Now, some will say this is going to push the world closer to nuclear war. Others will say he's done it too late. Biden has given Ukraine permission to fire American-made long-range missiles called ATACMS into targets, or ATACMS, into targets inside Russian territory, up to 350 kilometres into Russia. And this is apparently Biden's changed his mind on this because North Korea has now sent 10,000 soldiers to help Russia's invasion. What does this decision do to this war?
Well, you're right, Andrew, that this is a late decision. So there's about less than 2 months left for Biden's administration now. Not a lot of time for the Ukrainians to take advantage of these of these ended restrictions. But this is just an example of the US and Europe doing things that are too little too late to help the Ukrainians. It took a year to decide to send tanks, a year and a half to send F-16 fighter jets. Here we are almost 2 years in, and some range restrictions are being lifted on these US ATACMS missiles. I think there's a good side. It's hopefully going to strengthen Ukraine's hand if there are actual negotiations to end the war next year. Better to end it from a position of strength. But really, this looks like Biden, it's reminding me of a primary school child who's trying to do a year's homework in the last week of term.
I just wonder if it's come a bit late, but it seems the war has suddenly stepped up in preparation for Trump coming in and trying to, and he promised to stop it virtually in a day. Russia has now launched more than 200 missiles and drones at Ukraine's energy grid in just the last day, it's and other civilian targets as well, not military targets. It's killed 7 people, knocked out a lot of the country's power supply with winter coming. This is Russia's biggest such attack in months. This seems to be stepping up pressure. Vladimir Putin, Russia's dictator, stepping up pressure on Ukraine before Trump takes over. How do you see it?
Well, exactly. I mean, the Russian military, with their meat grinder tactics of just throwing men and machines at the problem and losing a whole lot of people, that has led them to advance further into Ukraine over the last 4 months. So it's been incremental advances everywhere. You're right. The Russians have no restrictions on using long-range missiles and drones to attack all across Ukraine, including some of their civilian population centres and the power grid. What the Ukrainians have done is take a bit of Russian territory in Kursk. They want to hold it. And for that, they will need to use weapons like these US missiles. So it really has been a very uneven approach that the Americans, NATO, and even Australia has enabled. We've hobbled the Ukrainians while the Russians have got far more aggressive. And with so little time left for Biden to change that, it doesn't look like a positive part of his legacy. He should have lifted these restrictions a year ago.
Michael Shoebridge, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Andrew.